So, if your nonprofit is fundraising nationally, there's this one big question that always inevitably comes up. In how many states do we actually need to register? It can feel like a huge task, so today we're going to break it down.
This explainer is part of the Multi-State Fundraising Compliance series, where we aim to make these complex regulations a little more practical. And this resource is provided by our friends at Ironwood Registrations.
All right, so here's the big question. It doesn't matter if you're just starting to think about a national campaign or if you've been doing it for years. This is a really common concern. Do you have to register everywhere all at once, or is it just a few key places? Well, the truth is, there's no single magic number. Most nonprofits end up somewhere in the middle. The right number for your organization really depends on what your fundraising looks like, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Okay, first things first. To really get a handle on this, you've got to understand the basic principle of how it all works. See, charitable fundraising compliance, it isn't managed at the federal level. It's a state-by-state system. And that system is pretty widespread. We're talking about approximately 40 states that have their own unique requirements for charitable solicitation that you have to follow before you can ask for donations from their residents. So, what does that actually mean for you? Well, in a word, complexity. Because each of those 40-ish states has its own rules, its own forms, and its own deadlines, any nonprofit that's fundraising nationally has to navigate this really complicated, multi-jurisdictional landscape. So, with all that in mind, where does a nonprofit even start? Well, very few organizations just jump in and register everywhere at once. The initial footprint is usually much, much smaller. Usually, those first few registrations are triggered by three main things: where your nonprofit is physically located, any states where you already have a big group of donors, and, of course, any states where you're actively running specific fundraising campaigns. And this brings us to a really important point. Your compliance needs aren't set in stone. They're actually designed to grow right alongside your fundraising success. So as your reach gets bigger, your need to register gets bigger too. So what usually triggers that growth? Well, think about it. Once you start sending out national email appeals, or you launch those online giving days that reach the whole country, or maybe you send direct mail far and wide, you're building a donor base that crosses state lines. Every new state you reach could mean a new registration requirement. And that's exactly how that small initial footprint starts to grow. An organization might start with just 2 or 3 states, but as their national programs get more mature, it's super common to see that number climb to 10, 20, or even more than 30 states. It's a gradual process. But what about the big guys, the huge national nonprofits that everyone's heard of? The ones that are actively and very intentionally asking for donations from people all across the country? Well, their situation looks a little different. For these truly national organizations, they often end up registering in pretty much every state that has a fundraising law. This can mean being registered in more than 40 different jurisdictions, covering almost every single state with a registration requirement. And let me tell you, managing that many registrations is a huge deal. It takes a ton of coordination to keep track of dozens of different filing deadlines, renewal dates, and financial reporting requirements. And they're all tailored to each state's specific rules. But here's a key piece of information to keep in mind. Not every single state is part of the system. There are a handful of states that, right now, don't require charitable solicitation registration. And these are the states we're talking about. So, for the purpose of fundraising, you generally don't need to register here. This is a super important list because it means even if you have a fully national campaign, you probably won't need to register in these specific places. So when you boil it all down, the most important thing isn't hitting some perfect number of states. It's all about having a proactive process. As your organization gets bigger, your compliance strategy just has to evolve right along with it. Honestly, just setting up a regular review is your best defense against a compliance headache. You just need to ask yourselves a few key questions every so often. Where are we actually fundraising? Where are our donors located now? Do we qualify for any small charity exemptions? And based on all that, when and where do we need to register next? If there's one big takeaway from all of this, it's this. Compliance is a journey that really mirrors your fundraising growth. You don't have to do it all at once. The whole process is designed to scale with your success. So I'll leave you with a question to think about for your own organization. As you look at your fundraising goals for this next year, is your compliance strategy ready to support that growth, or is it maybe time for review?